Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. A 23-year-old Oklahoma man who was recently released from prison will likely be heading back there this week after he allegedly stole a truck carrying an expensive load of sports cars, then gave police a rather novel excuse for his actions. According to reports, the whole thing started sometime on the morning of February 15th, when Arizona's Cochise County Police were called about a carjacking at a truck stop in the city of Wilcox. They arrived to find a driver who said that he had been attacked by a man who had pretended to take an interest in his truck, who then threw him from the cab and proceeded to drive off with the load of 10 Chevrolet C8 Corvettes he was supposed to be delivering. Officers quickly tracked down the stolen semi-truck, since, it wasn't the most inconspicuous vehicle. The suspect, later identified as 23-year-old Isaiah Walker, initially refused to pull over, forcing other drivers off the road. However, after some time he eventually gave up and was taken into custody. Following his arrest, Walker apparently gave a pretty interesting excuse for his actions. He claimed that he wasn't at all interested in the Corvettes. Instead, he said that he had stolen the semi-truck because he, quote, needed a ride home. The 23-year-old also admitted that he had just been released from prison. Walker is now facing new charges, including robbery, felony theft, and 11 counts of theft of a means of transportation. Police say that thankfully there was no damage done to either the semi-truck or the Corvettes it was transporting, and that the victim was ultimately able to complete his delivery. Pretty good news, considering the estimated value of the load was over $1.25 million. Authorities in San Bernardino County, California say that the family of a local 59-year-old man have been left stunned and heartbroken after he was brutally shot and killed last week over what has been described as nothing more than a minor fender bender. The disturbing event unfolded on the evening of February 5th when 59-year-old Jonathan Mock went to his local Walmart in the city of Highland. He was planning to make homemade beef jerky with his family and was only supposed to be there to pick up a couple of things, though sadly, he would never make it home. At around 8 p.m., Jonathan pulled into the store's parking lot and was navigating through the aisles looking for a spot when he made a fateful decision. According to witnesses, he stopped and reversed just as another vehicle was pulling out of a nearby space. When he did, it caused a minor collision. Immediately, Jonathan appeared to realize his mistake and reportedly got out of his car and walked over to the other vehicle to apologize. That's when things took a terrifying turn. As Jonathan was trying to take accountability for what happened, police alleged that the other driver, 36-year-old Shantice Norton, pulled out a gun and shot him in the face. He was killed almost instantly. Despite fleeing the scene, Norton was arrested roughly 12 hours later. Understandably, Jonathan's family were shocked by what had happened. However, they were even more horrified when they picked up the 59-year-old's car and saw just how insignificant the actual collision was. In the words of Jonathan's son Matthew, quote, "There was a scratch on the fender. There was not a dent. There was no real damage. There was a scratch. That is the extent of the collision that he lost his life over." Making matters even more senseless, family members say that Jonathan was a car enthusiast and a generous person who likely would have offered to fix any damage he had caused for free. Heartbreakingly, Jonathan reportedly leaves behind 3 children and 2 grandchildren. At the time of this recording, Shantice Norton remains in custody and has been charged with murder as well as personal/intentional use of a firearm. Representatives from the NYPD are asking for help from members of the public this week as they seek to track down a suspect in connection with the brutal murder of a 38-year-old woman. The case began at around 10:30 a.m. on February 8th when a worker at the Soho 54 Hotel in Manhattan found the body of 38-year-old Denise Olias Arancibia. The mother of 2, who was originally from Ecuador, was found lying on the floor of the room she had rented, her body covered by a blanket. Her death was quickly ruled a homicide, with a medical examiner later determining her cause of death to be compression of the neck and blunt force trauma to the head. A blood-spattered and broken iron found at the scene is believed to be one of the murder weapons used in the crime. Also discovered near Denise's body was a bloody pair of men's pants, which apparently had a receipt inside. After launching an investigation, NYPD detectives determined that the 38-year-old mother had checked into the Soho 54 at around 2:15 p.m. the day before her body was discovered. They also learned that despite having a residence where she lived with her adult son and other family members in Queens, Denise had been staying at the hotel for several nights each month going back about a year. This has led to some speculation that the 38-year-old was working as a sex worker. However, this has not been confirmed. Police say that she had no prior arrest record and that she also may have been working for a man in Manhattan who she was communicating with through WhatsApp. Denise's son claims that in the days leading up to her death, his mother seemed nervous and worried. That being said, it's not exactly clear what this may have been about. At the time of this recording, police say that they are looking for a suspect in connection with the murder, a man who was seen leaving the hotel sometime before Denise's body was discovered. At the time he was caught on surveillance video, he appeared to be wearing a distinctive pair of leggings that investigators believe belonged to Denise. So far, this man has not been identified by name, though the image of him has been released, and authorities are asking for anyone with information about him to please come forward. At the same time, NYPD representatives say that they have been following the unknown man's trail through credit card transactions. The situation is still developing. Authorities in Kansas City, Missouri say that one person is tragically dead this week and 22 others are injured following a terrifying shooting at a Super Bowl victory parade. According to reports, the disturbing incident unfolded at around 2 p.m., just as the victory parade for the NFL team, the Kansas City Chiefs, was wrapping up. A crowd of several thousand had gathered near Union Station when suddenly shots rang out over on the west side close to the building's parking garage. Multiple witnesses stated that at first they thought the noises they were hearing were fireworks. That was, until they noticed crowds of people scattering, many of whom were screaming. The situation led to panic and confusion as countless people rushed to take cover while others seemingly had no idea what was going on. A group of reporters who were on an elevated stage momentarily continued with their broadcast before others yelled at them to get down and protect themselves. Even amidst the terrifying chaos, several Good Samaritans could be seen doing their best to help. Some rushed to the aid of those who had been hit and wounded during the shooting, while others tackled one person who was allegedly armed with a weapon to the ground. Sadly, despite these heroic efforts, one person would still tragically lose their life. That person has now been identified as 43-year-old Lisa Lopez Gavlon, a beloved local DJ and radio host from nearby Shawnee, Kansas. The self-described Chiefs superfan had attended the victory parade with family members, some of whom horrifically witnessed her being gunned down. One of those was Lisa's adult son, who was also hit and wounded during the shooting. According to the latest available information, at least 22 people in total were wounded during the incident, more than half of whom were under the age of 16. Currently, the condition of many of the victims is unclear, with early reports suggesting some had suffered potentially life-threatening injuries. At the time of this recording, 2 people had been arrested in connection with the awful incident, both of whom are said to be juveniles. They are now facing gun-related charges as well as charges of resisting arrest. One other person was briefly detained, though police say that they have since determined that they were not involved in the crime. It's unclear if either of the 2 suspects currently in custody was the person that was tackled during the chaos. Not much has been released about the alleged motive behind the shooting, though authorities say they believe it was the result of an argument between several people and did not involve any sort of terror-related intent. Currently, police are asking the public to come forward with any additional information or evidence that they might have in connection with the case. They say that more arrests will likely follow, as well as additional charges. Authorities in Lake County, Florida say that a local man is facing a number of charges after he allegedly carjacked his own grandmother, then wrote a 4-page apology note saying that he was sorry for the crime. According to reports, the whole thing started at around 10:15 p.m. on February 6th, when police in the city of Leesburg received a call from a 77-year-old woman. The woman said that she had just been attacked by her grandson, who had also taken off with her car. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the elderly woman, who had cuts to one of her fingers, a hand, and one of her forearms. Thankfully, the injuries weren't too serious, and she proceeded to explain what had happened. The 77-year-old said that a little while earlier, her grandson, Alan Aspinwall, had asked her to unlock her car so he could get something from the trunk. When she went outside to make sure the vehicle was open for him, Aspinwall allegedly snatched his grandmother's keys from her hands and pushed her down onto the driveway before driving off in her car. The victim's car was recovered the next day, shortly before Aspinwall himself was arrested. When he was taken into custody, he apparently had his grandmother's car keys still in his possession. While Aspinwall reportedly refused to admit responsibility for what had happened, according to police, he went on to say that he felt bad about the situation multiple times while they were speaking to him. He also bizarrely went on to write a 4-page apology note in which he appeared to confess to the crime. The letter read in part, quote, "Dear Grandma, first and foremost, you are the most beloved person in the whole world, coming from me and everyone else. I want to apologize for not being the young man you raised, meaning that you raised a smart, intelligent, humble, loving grandson and took me in since birth, legal custody. You are my everything. You're the most strongest person I know. I'm truly sorry for the negative events that's been going on in my life. My mind has been so in the gutter. Every day I try not to think on purpose, but when I think, amazing things happen. Thank you for always forgiving me even if I'm wrong." Ironically, Aspinwall went on to write, quote, "Tell my son that his daddy was wrong. Tell him to always respect his grandma." I guess he's a real believer in the old saying, "Do as I say, not as I do." Anyway, at the time of Aspinwall's arrest, he was reportedly already wanted on an exposure charge. Authorities have now added carjacking, theft, and battery to that list. Representatives from California's Beverly Hills Police Department say that they recently captured a not-so-smooth criminal after he was spotted during the middle of a burglary and attempted to flee, only to be captured on camera taking an unplanned plunge into the victim's pool. According to reports, the whole thing started sometime back on January 6th, when a homeowner called police about a burglary in progress at their residence on the 300 block of South Palm Drive. The victim wasn't home at the time. However, they were alerted to what was going on after security cameras there activated and showed that an unknown man was inside. When officers responded to the scene, the suspect, later identified as 36-year-old David Verdun, reportedly tried to flee, but quickly found himself in a bit of a pickle. After climbing out a back window, he realized he was going to need help getting over the high backyard walls. For a moment, it must have seemed like Verdun was in luck when he found a ladder that was long enough to get over the wall. However, that luck was quickly about to change in a pretty hilarious way. And thankfully, an aerial police drone was there to capture this beautiful footage. After taking his embarrassing impromptu dip into the pool, Verdun apparently tried to hide in the yard, but he was quickly found by police. He was arrested and is currently facing burglary charges. Authorities in Reno, Nevada say that they are investigating a truly horrifying incident this week after a teenage girl allegedly shot and killed her father and young brother, then gave a chilling accounting of her actions. It all started sometime after 4 p.m. on February 9th, when Reno police received a 911 call from a home on Silver Sky Parkway. Almost immediately after dispatchers picked up, the caller, 17-year-old Mashenka Reed, reportedly began giving a disturbing confession. She said, quote, "I shot my dad. I shot my brother. My brother is dead." Even more alarmingly, she stated, quote, "I just couldn't resist the urge to kill somebody." When officers arrived at the scene, they quickly found the two victims that the teen had described. Her father, 39-year-old Justin Reed, was lying in the garage, while her brother, between the ages of 4 and 5, was unresponsive on a couch inside. Both were tragically pronounced dead at the scene from multiple gunshot wounds. A third person, a 2-year-old girl, was found inside a locked bedroom, though thankfully she was physically unharmed. After being taken into custody, investigators say that Mashenka Reed revealed more disturbing information about the crime. She explained that earlier that afternoon she had asked her dad to go out to get ingredients for homemade pizza. This had been a stall tactic so that she could look up some information on how to load and use his handgun. When Justin returned from the store, Mashenka allegedly ambushed him in the garage, shooting him in the back and chest. She then went into the living room where she shot her brother twice in the head while he was playing on a tablet computer. The 17-year-old apparently stated that the only reason she hadn't harmed her 2-year-old sister was because she couldn't figure out how to get past the lock on the bedroom door. When pushed for more information about the motive behind the incident, the 17-year-old reportedly said, quote, "I guess about my mom running away from us." She explained her mother had left their home back in December and that ever since she had spiraled into a deep depression. Mashenka further stated that she resented being left to take care of her siblings from Monday to Friday while her dad was away at school. She said she especially struggled with her younger brother, who had autism and was nonverbal. Mashenka stated that he made, quote, "annoying noises," and suggested she had reached a breaking point. At the time of this recording, the teen remains in custody. She's now facing 2 counts of open murder, as well as 1 count of attempted murder with a deadly weapon. Representatives from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police say that a 29-year-old Manitoba man is facing multiple murder charges this week after he was allegedly responsible for the killings of 5 of his family members, 3 of whom were his own children. According to reports, the devastating situation began at around 7:30 a.m. on February 11th, when police received a call about a potential hit-and-run on Highway 3, about halfway between the town of Carman and the city of Winkler. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the body of 30-year-old Amanda Clearwater, who was in a ditch just off the roadway. Sadly, she was pronounced dead shortly after. Roughly 2.5 hours later, authorities received a second call, this time about a car fire approximately 45 miles north of the first crime scene. Witnesses stated that it looked like a man was trying to save 3 young children from the burning vehicle. Sadly, when officers got to the location, they realized they were too late. All 3 of the victims were deceased. That wasn't the only thing, though. It turned out that the man witnesses initially thought was a hero was actually the alleged perpetrator, 29-year-old Ryan Howard Manakisik. As if all of this wasn't tragic enough, things came full circle when authorities learned that the 3 victims of the car fire were Manakisik's children, and that the hit-and-run victim was his common-law wife. A search of the family's home in Carman would reveal one final heartbreaking discovery: the body of a 5th victim, Amanda Clearwater's cousin, 17-year-old Maya Grattan. The child victims have since been identified as 6-year-old Bethany, 4-year-old Javen, and 2.5-year-old Isabella Manakisik. At the time of this recording, few additional details are available about the tragedy. We don't know the causes of death of any of the victims or the circumstances that led up to the alleged crime, and police say that they won't release anything else until more investigative work is done. The only other real information related to the case pertains to Ryan Manakisik's prior criminal history, as well as his struggles with mental health issues and drug addiction. The 29-year-old reportedly suffers from anxiety and depression, and had previously been ordered to undergo addiction and mental health treatment. This was reportedly following a 2019 incident in which he smashed an electronic display at a Tim Hortons in Winnipeg by throwing glass mugs at it while high on methamphetamine. During the court proceedings for that incident, the judge gave Manakisik what now seems like a prophetic warning. The then 25-year-old was encouraged to get help before, quote, things spiral completely out of control. The judge went on to say, quote, if you don't do something, eventually it's going to cost you your family. At the time of this recording, Manakisik remains in custody. He has been charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.